Hello everybody, this is Linker, and I'm here today to report to you what are the best heroes that you could be using today in the endgame campaign and why. Stay tuned. Heroes are long priorities that you'll want to invest in since very early, so that in the late stages of the game where they really get the shine, you'll make the best use of them. And in this video I wanted to go over this tier list and explain every single hero and explain their positioning so that you can understand how each hero is ranked and why each hero is granted the rank that they are. Now, first we'd probably want to iterate over the tiers. So the tiers are the best way that I've seen to divide this. This is a common source of misunderstanding. Being a lower tier doesn't mean necessarily that you'll be bad in every single stage, and of course even the lowest of low tier heroes like Kaz, like Rigby, they'll still be useful occasionally. You can still make best use of them, but in low investment, which is what you're gonna see in high deficit campaign stages, you want the very best heroes to have on every single level, and you want to be able to have this flexibility between viable heroes so that you can really put them to the use. So first we have the lowest tier, which is never used. These are heroes that even if you had 10 setups or more, would likely be never used unless you had any other way. These are not necessarily bad heroes. I like some of these heroes, but sadly they're just not fit in the current metagame. Doesn't fit in 9 setup meta means that if you have 9 setups, which is the very late stages of the game, we're talking about north of chapter 35, you're still not going to see these heroes fit normally, but they could still be used. They're just not as viable as others. They're not common to see. Next we have doesn't fit in 7 setup meta, which is pretty self-explanatory. Same for 7 setups, and this is around chapter 35 is where you're gonna see the 7 setup meta arise. So those heroes could be viable in the very late game. Obviously, as more heroes are introduced, those heroes are gonna come down and up occasionally, but right now on 7 setup meta, these are heroes that you're not gonna see often. Doesn't fit in 5 setup meta. This is chapter 33. This is where you're gonna see good chunk of the game, the players get stuck in the game. This is really important to understand. This is the stage where your arsenal is ready put to the test. So these are heroes that you can start already investing in. This is the lowest tier, I feel, that will practically be heroes that you should look over of course these heroes, and these heroes. And above them we have the matchup specific. Now, matchup specific is very important to understand. Matchup specific is heroes that are not necessarily substitutes in every single kind of match. These are heroes that you'll want to have in a specific matchups so that you can really pull victories where you otherwise couldn't. So heroes that you'll see here, for example, are Thorin, which is a hero that's inconsistent in general, but could really advance you. So in certain matchups, if you're really behind in deficit, Thorin is a great hero. But otherwise, Thorin is not a consistent hero that you should base your entire team around, because you're not going to get very far doing that since his low consistency. There's other tiers, of course, so this is a tier where you want to be really focused on those matchups and identify the kind of a place where this hero would fit. Fourth plus set or global substitutes is a tier that you want to look for. These are your heroes that you'll usually see. These are mostly common heroes that you'll be able to replace in other setups. If you don't have those expensive heroes, those first tier heroes, these are going to be your good heroes that can substitute, that fulfill a role. They're really good at what they do. And up here we have the real meta, which is where you have, first of all, I want to go top down, the God comp. These are the best 5 heroes you could currently have in the campaign. Second, you'll have the second set and the first set of substitutes. So these are commonly your second set, because starting for 31-4, which is good to understand, you'll have more than one set per stage. So at boss stages, you will have more than one stage, and I hope I'll show over here right now what could this look like. But just know that since 31-4, you will need more than one good comp. So just having those god comp heroes, which are really good, won't be enough on its own. So these are your heroes that you're really looking forward to get. Strong heroes overall that will help you progress through the campaign. campaign consistently. And lastly, the third set of heroes and the second set of substitutes are those good heroes that are on the verge of being in the top of the meta on that upper tier, but they're just not quite there. There's just better things that you could invest in if you're going for one setup. So these are really, really good heroes, but these are not your first pick for campaign consistency. Now this is important. This doesn't mean anything about PvP. These are not by any stretch of imagination bad heroes. These are just good picks that are very meta and great, but you don't want to pick them first over those heroes in the first and the second tier. So let's get this started. And first we have Arthur. Arthur. Great hero. So he's going to be in the second set. Arthur is not a part of the God comp, but he's extremely viable. He has abilities that allow him to tank essentially over 70% of incoming damage in most campaign stages. So he's your tank that does not suffer as much from enemy scalings. So if you're talking about those deep damaging enemies, you're talking about those Chimera's, you're talking about Brutus, you're talking about Isolde, you're talking about anything that really threatens you, Arthur can take that damage head on, and he can mitigate a big part of it while providing valuable buffs for your party. This works in the late game just as well. So we're talking about, he goes with heroes like Khazar, like Gwyneth, like great heroes that you'll see around. Overall, an amazing dimensional hero, which means that if you get just one copy of Arthur, you'll be good to go with him for all kinds of campaign stages, and he'll serve you well. Anarchy, a very interesting hero, is going to go in that doesn't fit in 5 set of meta stage. Sadly, this is going to be a recurring theme where Maulers are actually not as good as other heroes. Anarchy is one of them. While he's greatly tanky, he just doesn't do enough. Even his auras do not mitigate enough damage like other heroes. For example, Cecilia has a great aura that mitigates a little more. And even though his furniture does give you those shields, he's not gonna be good enough to fit on your 5 setup stages. You're gonna use other heroes like the God comp, like Gwyneth, like Aaron, like all these great heroes where Anarchy just will not run a counter to them. And that's important to remember because it's a recurring theme that's for most Maulers, and it's a very sad, but Maulers are sadly this weaker faction. Next we have Aziz. Hands down an incredible hero. He makes the comp of the game work. So Aziz, one thing you gotta understand is that he cancels ultimates, which means that if any of your team uses an ultimate, Aziz will make it so that the enemy team cannot. And in the late game stages, he ranks incredibly. His ult makes, in conjunction with his signature item, makes all enemies deal less damage. His furniture makes him take less damage, so it becomes this extremely tanky Hypogean, which is going to give a bonus to your whole team. And the Hypogean factional bonuses are just great. It's going to give this great bonus to your whole team, making the enemy team unable to really touch your team and putting the whole team together as long as you have those ultimates going. And next we're going to look at Work. Work is sadly gonna fit in, doesn't fit in 9 setup meta. Work has some tiny redeeming qualities, for example CC immunity, but again, even his defense reduction, which is very relevant in the Twisted Realm, is just not gonna help him in the campaign. This is not a hero you want to invest in. He does have the tiniest of tiny niches, but again, you won't see him anywhere anytime soon. And next, and this is I know a controversial one, is Pharrell, which is going to go in the 3rd set. Now people are going to ask me, how come it doesn't go in the 2nd set? And I'll explain. Pharrell is an incredible assassin. He gives the whole team, every time that he has those little spirit stack, he can make the whole enemy team CC'd, make them lose their haste with his furniture, eventually stun them as well. His damage scales too, so he's both this disruptive hero, and he also can land tremendous CC on the enemy team. Sadly though, that comp is just not as consistent when you get to those high level differences, because Pharrell's damage runs short and his CC has some tough competitions from the first loss on the list, so despite being very, very, very viable, Pharrell is just going to be on the gist of that 2nd tier, on the top of that 3rd tier, and that's where we're going to see him. And next, and it's funny because this is another surprising hero, is going to be Lorsen, and Lorsen is actually going to be high up in the 2nd and 1st set substitutes, and people keep asking me, why do you rank Lorsen so high? And this was everywhere, literally everywhere. Everyone asks me, but this is something you gotta understand. Lorsen's role is very simple. Lorsen makes the enemy team takes less damage instantly. Doesn't matter what you do, even if an Athalia engages on a Lorsen that's 100 levels behind, he will still always land that debuff, which means that any kind of burst comp that you use, and burst is currently a very viable strategy in the late game, is going to benefit from Lorsen, and this applies to PvP as well. But here in the campaign, Lorsen is a very cheap hero that pushes those first tier compositions forward. He's a support hero, much like Arthur. He doesn't do it all himself, but he has this great viability and has extra great furniture, which buffs all kinds of things. So check him out. He's really one of those underrated heroes that can really support your team. And next we're going to look at Kaz. Now Kaz is going to be a sad story. Just doesn't work. Dodge just doesn't do enough for her. There's other heroes that do what she does. She just doesn't bring anything to the table. Fox is going to be a substitute. I feel like that's the definition of a substitute. Fills in many different comps. Usually does not carry by himself, but he could theoretically against certain comps. However, has this great buff cleanse that he does. He cleans all debuffs from your team and cleanses all buffs from the enemy team. So you can see this on heroes like Brutus is where you're gonna really use Fox. Heroes like Tassie on the enemy team, Fox can help you when the whole team is getting banished or other things. So Fox is a great hero. Also, signature item on Fox, great. Check it out. Increases a lot of defense for your team. And next we're gonna have the near hero Daemon. Daemon fits in the same type of comps as Feral for the most part, which is Celis Graveborn. He can also go into late game with other teams, energy teams, while Feral mostly goes with Gwyneth, rarely. But Daemon is an incredible campaign hero. In the very late game, he can actually benefit a lot from energy. Yes, some matchups he's good into. However, he still does not fit in those super consistent setups. Where he goes is those less carry-centric setups in the late game where you have Celis Graveborns, and that's what you want to look at. So, still a third set, even though he's very strong, so you gotta keep an eye on it. Just like Feral, on the verge of that second set, fits mostly in Celestials and Graveborns, which is not the most consistent set, but it's a great one to have. Absolutely an incredible hero with great furniture, makes all enemies take more damage through his signature item, through his Elder Tree, through a lot of different things. So really a great hero you should definitely check out. Next is Grezel. Also doesn't fit in 9 set of meta. Has this magical defense passive, but other than that doesn't have any redeeming qualities in the campaign. Is not good from behind, and hereby just doesn't serve any role to that extent. The new hero Drez. So Drez is really interesting. He does not fit anywhere, and he does not fit in the Twisted Realm as well because his debuff is outright outclassed by Works. However, this is still an assassin that puts out damage and debuffs, so he could fit once he starts stacking on that Mauler team around the 8 set of meta, 7 set of meta super rarely, but still not the type of a hero that you will normally see. And this has to be an error, so I'll just skip right over it. Put it right here. So Zolrath, second tier hero, great hero. Lots of damage coming out from Zolrath, lots of burst. He steals allied defense and stays alive, then resets, and then he has more power to engage on those enemies that really resist the kind of burst comps that he goes into. Great hero really in the very late stages of the game, but requires a lot of resources to really shine out, unlike those other heroes like that we're going to look at later that will go in the God comp. So great hero again. And twins go in the God comp. Very fragile, but gives you this stacking hasted buff that makes you ult all the much faster. So they go with a Ziz. They definitely match up great into most things in the meta. Rarely you see in the very late game King's Tower 700 where occasionally twins are replaced with Daemon. However, twins are great in their own right, will do you great in the campaign, and they're definitely the second hero that you should stargaze after one of our favorites down here. Now Aaron goes right over here. An incredible wielder, incredible welder, one of the cheap heroes in the game that can really carry you through, has great consistency, can pull all these enemies and CC them, and if he just manages to dodge a little bit, which in the campaign you can retry for, he will burst down enemies and carry eventually. So a great hero in the end game, definitely one of the greatest, and teams are definitely built around this guy, with the likes of Zorath, with the likes of Lorsan, etc. Mizoth, many people like this hero a lot. Personally, in the campaign, he just doesn't cut it for me. He does have this semi-Fox kind of ult where he cancels an enemy, or Fox can make this coffin pop. However, not as tanky as you would first think. The sissy immunity is useful, but sadly it just doesn't do enough after he ults. So not the best hero in the campaign. Again, a great hero that substitutes usually a tank, gives hypogeum bonus, so certainly a good hero, but not in the top 3 tiers, not one that you can just fit into those top meta compositions and instantly claim those rewards from. Otherwise, great hero. Baden. This is a pretty sad story. Again, Baden, one of my favorite personal heroes, doesn't fit in 9 setup meta. His clones just don't do enough ever since they have this hard cap on 4 clones. You cannot overstack these clones to win stages, and he just does not bring enough to the table. He gets burst down, his clones don't do enough damage, so just sitting there, a little better than those completely inviable heroes we're gonna have down there, but still, I wish I could have put Ira a little down. That's a mistake. Anyways, Hendrik. Our first matchup specific hero. So Hendrik actually goes on the same kind of setups that Arthur goes in, which is Gwyneth. I guess I kind of spoiled it. But Hendrik is an amazing hero that can save backline heroes for a duration of time. So if you're just trying to buy those few seconds for a backline hero to make that carry, while you want this Hendrik that will be very tanky throughout the match, healing himself and doing what Hendrik does, he could fit into certain matchups. However, not good enough to go into global substitutes, doesn't bring to the table in every single matchup something like heroes like Fox and Mizoth that will consistently do something. Hendrik is one of those heroes that fits only in very specific comps and into very specific enemies. Athalia, second, definitely. Fits on many sets, by the way. We're gonna see her in Wilders as Athalia, you're gonna see her in Celos Graveborn, you're gonna see her in so many top tier setups, so she's definitely great, and she's definitely gonna substitute for your first set if you do not have some of these heroes. A great Celestial that you can get from Challenger coins, so one of the best in the game that you should definitely keep an eye for. An amazing assassin that invades and disrupts, just what you like from your second tier heroes. Next is gonna be Gorvo, same story. Permastuns, great hero overall, but you really need to know where you put him because he needs some enemies that hate invades to be grouped, and then is where he really shines. He can make stuns stay almost indefinitely if you put him right, but again, not always. So this is the kind of heroes, especially this tier in general, that will really shine in the hands of an experienced player. Oscar, Library Assassin. Has a special signature item that can push Athalia away and other invaders, but again, doesn't do enough on his own, does not benefit too much to the team, and just overall not good enough despite those few redeeming qualities here and there. Khazard goes in the third. Khazard is one of those heroes that in the late game you start to value, because Khazard, if you can burst enemies down, he will freeze them almost impermanently once he ults, and in addition he will increase those team-wide CC conditions. So let's say you have the whole team, for example, frozen by Aaron's winds or anything else, then the duration will increase. A great hero that allows you to keep those heroes CC'd so you can burst them down just slightly longer, and then you lock them down until they take that final bit of damage. Great in the campaign, even and great deficit. Now, Isolde, this is a very late game specific ranking because he needs his furniture and he needs his signature item and he needs to be powerful, but he's a good carry. He's like a late game Shamiya where he stacks this power, he likes energy kind of support, and eventually becomes strong enough to actually fit on some teams as a carry, but still, this is somewhere between the third set and the matchup specific where he could fit on those top sets like Celos Graveborn, but still you need to be somewhat mindful, so in my mind, he's more the fourth set kind of category. You can just substitute him anywhere, but he does go great in the late game. Brutus, a very interesting ranking, is matchup specific. He's one of the highest ranking maulers, and not because he's super consistent, but because he has a very unique ability where no matter what, he's just not gonna die in the late game because of his last gasp. So this is the type of a hero you want to keep an eye for, because in some matchups, it's just being able to think, wait, maybe Brutus is gonna do this, just take this damage until I carry on. That will really allow you to progress to the next levels, and you often see this with wielders, maulers kind of compositions. You also see this sometimes in Gwyneth compositions. Great hero overall, but still, on his own, if you just put him out of nowhere, he's not gonna do much. You need to know where to put him to make him really serve the role that you need him to do, similar to Hendrix in a way. Saurus, great hero. The thing is not Twisted Realm, so he's not going to claim the top spot, but his single target damage is still great. If he gets going, he can really do a lot and brings a lot to the table. Still, not super consistent, doesn't have a lot of AoE, needs time to spiral out, so he hates those burst compositions. He hates seeing those Aspalias, those A-runs on the enemy team, but still does great on his own, and can, if you put him in the right hands and you put him on those setups, can do great. He's actually better than those matchup-specific heroes because Saurus is also consistent. He will consistently, if you get him to that point, just carry through the match, unlike some of the other heroes that are going to be lower on this list. And next, Gwyneth. Now, we mentioned Gwyneth a lot here, but Gwyneth is an amazing hero that's factional, so easy to get, and will really drive your composition to the next level. Gwyneth does these basic attacks that CC entire backlines. She will do incredible, and if the backline is static, she will end stuns, she will counter heal, she will do damage, she does everything. But if the comp is not, then you gotta give her the right support. So that's the kind of hero that fits with the likes of Lorsan, likes of Arthur, and more. Really. Now, Scrag, an interesting case, goes to matchup specific because late game, and we're talking about late game campaign, Scrag actually has some redeeming qualities. For example, and that's the prime example, is his furniture. The furniture is benefiting heroes that are on the enemy side of the field, so if you build your team for all these kind of invades like Athalia, like others, you're really gonna benefit a lot from him because he gives 25 damage mitigation, he gives 20% extra damage. That's incredible for those invading comps, and although he was originally designed with knockback in mind, that's not where he fits. He fits where you can invade and just cut down the team really fast with those very strong heroes. Next, Mehira. Mehira goes in the God comp. Mehira is a Hypogean that her furniture allows her to gain extra energy. So we're seeing a lot of energy traits. The Hypogean bonus gives her more energy. Her furniture allows her to get more energy with healing, which the God comp has plenty of. So Mehira, perhaps the weakest link of the God comp, can be replaced by others, but still an incredible hero. Absolutely incredible, because she scales off the enemies. She ults and makes the enemies attack themselves. So those are the enemies attack that you're looking at. In addition to percent damage, so she just has all the parameters to really make those high deficit comps work and then tremendous damage against them, which the God comp enjoys a lot. So Mehira, an incredible Hypogean hero that will help you get the highest level deficits you could. An amazing hero, one of the only high tier sorcery tree heroes that you should really keep an eye open for. And next is gonna be Vork. Just underwhelming. After he ults one, he ults faster because his ult generates more energy when he does his attacks, but still an pretty underwhelming Mauler assassin that should be buffed soon, I believe. Odin, great furniture again, has this ultimate where he can drain energy, so could fit with the likes of energy comms to lock down, similar to Aziz, slightly worse Aziz, but he has his own redeeming qualities. Odin has a lot of damage. He has this passive with the eyes that if you can make the match stall a little bit, can really do great. And on top of that, his furniture buffs allies incredibly. So again, a very squishy hero. So he can get targeted down really quick. He will burst down. He won't do the damage he needs if the fight doesn't go long enough and you can't sustain for him. But if you could and the matchup allows it, he could do wonders. So keep your eyes open on Odin. Nakarur, an interesting dimensional hero, has very conditional CC. Not a trivial one to use, but she can self-heal incredibly if you put her in the right comp. Utilizing her furniture, she can heal herself to double her original health. She has some damage in various forms. Her scalings are absolutely higher than what you'd think, and just look them up. And additionally, her CC when she locks down certain heroes is really, really great. So she's a great substitute kind of hero that locks down other heroes like Fox, like Mizoth, and others. And the next one is gonna be just sad. I hope you know what this is. And Chimera is also another sad one for me because she works so great in the early game and in the mid game, but in the late game, Chimera is actually gonna belong in the doesn't fit in 7 setup meta because at those high deficits, and I'm not talking about 60 level deficit, I'm talking about 100, 150 level deficit, she just stalls. She just doesn't do enough. Her ultimate is just not enough. It's not fast enough, and the fights don't go long enough for her to really pick those heroes off. However, she could in specific matchups and specific ratios if you support her right. So she does have that opening. She's not in the absolute bottom tiers, but still needs a hero that needs a lot of support and otherwise plays as a very niche tank. Safia, interesting hero that becomes a support hero as the game transitions to the late game. So Safia, this hero is one that you really want to understand. In the early and mid game, she's a carry, and her scalings are incredible, and you really like her for that. But in the end game, Safia's most redeeming quality is her pyramid, where she sets this little passive on the side of the field that makes everything take less damage. This makes her work in many different comps. She works with Aaron, she works with other support heroes like Fox. She has all these kinds of setups, and of course she fits with Maulers if you are at the stage of the game where they're relevant. But Safia, the best Mauler in the game, is going to fit in the 3rd tier, a great scaling mage. Again, you don't see many mages in the top tiers. That can seriously make an impact on your team, but not quite on the top because at the late game, she does not bring enough to the table. Overall, great hero though. Solis, just low, given our furniture, respawning stuff, just doesn't make the cut. Not enough damage, just like a worse Chimera, pretty much it. Cecilia is matchup specific. Her ability to first of all place those markers in CC is remarkable, but the best thing about her that you use her for, and that doesn't require a lot of ascension, is her circle, where she teleports to the enemy side of the field, is pretty much can't get hit by them except few heroes, and then she places this circle. And this circle, if you place it right, can reduce the enemy team damage by a lot. It reduces by a crazy number, and if you set it right, it can affect 3 enemies of the enemy team and sometimes even more. So a crazy hero that can sometimes really turn the tables, but otherwise in normal matchups just doesn't always find the right role, because on her own she just does not bring that much to team fights as much as she does to specific counters. So this is a classic matchup specific hero that you're going to see over here. Lucius, a global substitute. In the end game, he has a very specific role. He's a tank. He also, you often see him put in the back line, which is something the beginners don't know, because he knockbacks. He has this great CC in the knockback. His shield grants him damage immunity, which is great. His furniture was changed, so again, not one of those top heroes like he used to be, but a great substitute that can fit into any comp with decent success at the very least. Talene, the best hero in the game. hands down. Regenerates, cannot die, does incredible damage, stacks her shields, amazing heals, just the best hero in the game. Always start by stargazing Talene, an incredible hero that just would fit into any team, even at low ascension. Truly the most broken hero in the game by a mile. They should nerf it, and she fits with the God comp because she heals Mehira over her energy threshold. She benefits from the twins' attack speed because she's a basic attacker, she's an assassin, and she helps Aziz with her ults where she generates this energy over time, and never actually dying as well is a great perk to have on your team. Not much else to say. And Leica goes in the second set, not for her own carry abilities and not for her own furniture, but rather because of her great buff. Nobody else really brings to the table this haste buff that she does. Twins kind of have a similar mechanic, but Leica just brings it right away, which benefits the likes of Gwyneth, of Aaron, and of Zolrath and others to really burst down compositions. So Leica is one of the best go-to heroes when you want to burst your enemy. Next, Belinda. A very interesting hero, goes in, doesn't fit in 5-7 meta, and she's not a carry. She's not. In the early game she's a carry, but this is not what I'm referring to, because in the end game you use her for crit ratings. So much like Arthur buffing Khazred's crit, Belinda has a great crit buff that she provides to her highest attack allies. All kinds of teams can benefit from it. Khazred mostly, Gwyneth sometimes. All kinds of heroes actually find some utility in Belinda, but again, a squishy hero doesn't scale into late game, so you're not going to see her often. Although I've used her a few times on my channel in 33-40, but not a common hero that fits in 5-7 meta. Tassie, an incredible hero that's on the verge of God comp. Absolutely amazing. Cannot die, teleports around, scales incredibly because enemies cannot damage her. So this is key. All these heroes have something that makes them a little bit unfair. Athalia invades, the Arthur, like damage reduction. So Tassie just teleports away from all the trouble and is full furniture, full SI. She just can't be hit. She places those debuffs on the enemies. She makes them sleep for longer durations, so kind of replaces the Mehira ult sometimes. An incredible hero that fits into a number of different compositions. Nara, she goes into the third, and she's gonna be all on the little bit on the bottom of it. So her furniture actually, after testing, we found is a little bit underwhelming, not like what you would think by reading it. Still a great Celes Graveborn hero that has those executes and has the CC, but can sometimes just find herself not doing enough against those late game heroes in the campaign to actually get them to the health threshold where she wants them to be. Kelthor. Super interesting hero, goes in matchup specific. Kelthor has this factor of invasion, like Nara pulls, like Athalia invades. Kelthor invades and he has this immunity as well, so he has a few redeeming qualities, but still they don't line together easily. So he doesn't have incredible damage, he doesn't have incredible CC, but he has some damage mitigation. He stays alive after he dies, so he has very strong attributes of all kinds of heroes, and if you can really fit him in, he could do a various set of things. He could fit in Celes Graveborn, he could fit in Thorn sets, he could do all kinds of things if you really know how to use them, which makes him a matchup specific hero. Rosaline, and this is another one that's a little surprising to some people, but she goes in the second, and not even because of her furniture, but because of her flex value. Rosaline is one of the most flexible heroes in the game. She can substitute so many. She can substitute Tween, she can substitute Talene rarely with her damage. She can go in Gwyneth setups, she goes in Wielder setups, she even goes in Celes Graveborn setups. She just goes decently successfully in so many setups and has this % damage on her crockery and this extra trait of her ult ramping up that she does that just fits so well. So she's one of the heroes that, by virtue of fitting into so many setups, actually takes the first set of substitutes. She can substitute for the comp, but she can substitute also for so much else. So an absolutely, definitely great late game hero that you should have, replacing many others. Very few heroes can contest with the amount of substitutes she can do. Maybe her and Athalia are the best substitute heroes in the game. Rowan goes in the God comp. Rowan is the only factional hero in the God comp. Incredible signature item that gives a lot of energy for cycling, has a lot of healing, has underappreciated haste debuffs and energy steals, immunities, so many things in one hero. He can tank, he supports, he heals, he generates mana, he debuffs, just an incredible hero. Doesn't damage on its own, but supports literally every other hero in the game. So goes in the God comp and also goes in many different other setups. Definitely the hero to top of all the wish lists. If there is one. Satrano silly does not fit in 7-7 meta, even after her buff. Great hero overall, don't get me wrong. I really like how they changed her, but still as a Mauler, doesn't have enough damage. Her counter heal requires all kinds of things. And her furniture is super conditional, so still doesn't have that, doesn't even have that anarchy support kind of thing where it makes him kind of fit really within 7 setup metas off Maulers. Satrano really requires those Maulers and takes heavy investment to do it, and is just doesn't do enough. She's tanky, she's fine, but still does not fit into 7 setup metas. Skriath is one of the best Maulers due to one ability. Furniture. Only his furniture. Skriath is furniture, and you should look at this. It groups enemies. So heroes like Aaron absolutely enjoy this. This can make all enemies be pulled by Aaron. There's other heroes who enjoy it to a lesser extent. Isolde, for example, could enjoy it. Belinda could enjoy it. Gwyneth could enjoy it. But Aaron is the one hero that you really want to keep an eye of. Skriath, he groups those heroes together, and that's his one redeeming quality, but sometimes that's exactly what you're going to need in that matchup, so he's a matchup specific Mauler that we love to see over here. Thorin, as explained, he's matchup specific. Great hero, can carve through all kinds of things offensively. Still inconsistent, but defensively actually has another completely different set of matchup specific usage. His CC is very interesting, sometimes works with Khazard because it's a global kind of frightening, and on top of that he has this damage reflection, which you really like to see. He has this resurrection effect, he's really tanky, so I urge you to actually, if you have Thorin, try and use him defensively and see what happens. He might actually surprise you. In certain matchups, he might be exactly what you need, whether it be offensively or defensively. Flora, an incredible carry that we see go in Cells Graveborn. Again, fits in specific teams, but haste debuffs, plenty of them. Ally buffs, really enjoys her immunity. Benefits from very little buffs and debuffs actually in the game, as this is a good example for that. His energy buff actually affects Flora, which is good to know, but definitely keep an eye for Flora, which is one of the best heroes that you could keep pulling from the Challenger store. A great Cells Graveborn hero that does require a lot of investment, but goes in Cells Graveborns and does that successfully due to this tanky nature of this non-carry centric setup. Thane, sad story, incredible furniture too, but goes into never used. I'll give him the honor of being ahead of Ira, and Rain, and Kaz actually. Some people might hate me for that, but still never used, just does not carry consistently enough at level deficit, requires to be close to the enemy, which does not happen in the campaign because you challenge ahead of you. You always go one step higher, and just Thane hates looking up, absolutely hates it. Almost a very interesting hero here. Does not fit in 5 setup meta, has the CC that he brings to the table, has the side carry potential, could go in various off-wielder setups, but still does not do enough on his own, is not as tanky as you'd first think. His self-healing does get countered with a lot of those new hero changes, so a good hero, but not matchup specific, doesn't fit in 5 setup meta. And somewhere in the middle of that tier, so you might actually see him in 6 and 7 setups sometimes. Cyrus does not partner with Almost this time. He actually goes below because he does not have any redeeming quality like almost does, like his writhing roots. His ult and his furniture are some CC, but he just does not get them off enough. His passive does not benefit him when he's behind, only when he's ahead, so just does not really do anything at all. Which is why you don't see him anywhere until those 8 and 9 setup metas, where he could do some CC and tank somewhat decently. As you progress through the campaign, you do more stages, so the gap actually reduces slightly, which might allow his passive some usage there. Tidus, a carry mauler, a good carry mauler. He benefits from killing, he benefits lifesteal. I like his concept a lot. Again, a mauler, so not that amazing, but has a great group buff of movement speed and all kinds of things in his kit. So look him up, a great mauler hero, but still, again, a mauler assassin. So his carry ability, his damage, his teamwork just not good enough to place him anywhere higher. Orthos, one of the most tanky heroes in the game. You just need to get him 15 seconds in, and then he heals tremendously. His ult heals him even more, so as enemies damage him, he can heal back. One of the best tanks in the game that debuffs the enemies to allow your comp to survive, but needs those friends that can stand those first 15 seconds, where he will not be as efficient as a tank. So his Celis Gravebone Corn, great comp, but still does not belong to those upper categories. An amazing hero, an amazing usage of that kit that you can put in those setups, but still nowhere higher than the third. A great hero overall. Torn does not fit into 7 setup meta, sadly. Just his shields do not work out, just do not scale well. He just gets bursted down and dies. He doesn't do much when he's behind, and that's one thing you gotta keep an eye out, because he relies on ulting and stuff like that and healing, and just that doesn't get to happen as often. So you'll need to get to that late stage where spiraling heroes that are kind of equal, like Shamir, that needs to be just a bit ahead to get going, will be good for Torn to actually bring you value. Cassus doesn't fit into 5 setup meta. Now, Cassus goes there not because of his change actually, but because of his passive that buffs maulers. So the second you see those mauler setups getting used a little bit, like this kind of Scrag, Tidus, Athalia, Anarchy kind of thing, this is where Cassus gets used. He gives life leech to maulers, which makes them much stronger, and his furniture can make him really useful. So a good hero when maulers are useful, but until then just doesn't do anything. So fits exactly there. Estrilda, amazing hero with her buff. Many people undervalue their buff. I actually liked it a lot. Just a good hero to have your eye on overall. You're really gonna like her as she is, and additionally, as you can see on Estrilda herself, she knocks back, she helps those heroes that are very useful. She fits in Gwyneth comps, but also in Khazad comps, where you just want this mitigation to keep her knocking back and doing all kinds of things. So has a lot of utility, buffs energy as well, buffs attack, so great for burst as well. You see her used sometimes with hyper aggressive comps with Aaron on them. So great hero overall, different uses since her buff. Her buff really put her in the right direction, so we love seeing those kinds of heroes that used to be bad, those OGs that are now in the top of the meta. Ukyo, and dimensional hero that was never FTP'd, sadly. Just goes in matchup specific. His furniture is great, gets some buffs, but he needs to get going in order to do that and really make the impact. You rarely see him in Gwyneth setups, but there's often substitutes for that. So if you really want to use your Ukyo, you need a specific matchup where he gets spiraling, or you really need to CC going, and that's where he's gonna shine. So again, these heroes I think are the highest skill ceiling usage heroes that you could have. These are the ones that really experienced players are gonna put to use, and Ukyo is one of those in my head, definitely. And Tandara, very set for me, but she goes and doesn't fit a 9 setup. Her healing is good, her furniture is good, but she's another one of those cases where from behind she just doesn't do enough. She gets bursted and she dies, and it's very sad to say, and I like her design a lot, but sadly Amalid just doesn't bring enough. Numisu doesn't fit in 7 setup, has those totems in his specific niche, that could be used to just slightly tank more, but again, a Mauler that doesn't do enough, doesn't have that incredible scaling, so has a very small niche in those late game setups with Maulers, and rarely even maybe outside, but still you won't see him anywhere in normal 7 setup meta. Rigby, enough said, just doesn't do enough. Good furniture actually, it was a step in the right direction, but he just doesn't do anything, sadly enough, just doesn't do it. Isabella goes in here. She has a similar case to Shamira. Her furniture, which makes her attacks, the void bursts, or actually makes her like more bursty, like a quicker Shamira, if we may. That's good for her, that's better than what she used to be, but still gets bursted down, does not have enough self-healing in her life leech, and just, unless you really keep her and build the comp around her, she doesn't do enough. But in 7 setup meta, she could be your carry in some cases, especially since all other kinds of Graveborns get useful. For example, you see more of Thorn out there, you see maybe Thorn and Odin get used as side carries in other matchup specific setups. That's where Isabella might be visible for you. Last two, so we're gonna have Wukong. Wukong, an amazing 3rd set hero, absolutely great, fits in Cells Graveborn, also fits in some other comps, very close actually to the 2nd set, but doesn't quite make it because he doesn't have that cutting edge kind of thing where you must have him for some comps. However, an incredible hero that you won't regret investing in, absolutely has this great clones kind of thing going where he both spirals his damage and benefits more. So we love to see Wukong absolutely here. Great hero overall that fits into those specific compositions like Cells Graveborn and others pretty successfully. Lastly, we're gonna have Namora. Namora is close to matchup specific, but actually goes into the substitutes. Her heals are good, her charms are good, her furniture, where she charms in a group, actually has a very weird hitbox, so it's not consistently useful. I've heard from some people this Kriath Iron Namora setups might do an instant Mehira ult. That has to be tested, but until I see that with my own eyes, global substitute, which can heal many setups. You see her in all kinds of comps that need just a little bit more sustain. She also buffs healing, so you like to see her with other heroes that heal. But other than that, a decent hero, doesn't really do anything too crazy, but has those heals. She is the healing hero of the game, and you like to see her here as a global substitute, showing that this is in fact a viable strategy in many comps. And with that, I'm gonna close this tier list. Hope you guys enjoyed it, hope you learned something, hope it was good for you. It's one of my first videos, so I'd absolutely love your engagement and your opinions about everything. I'd love to hear from you guys in Reddit, in YouTube, in the Discord. Just let me know what you think and if this helped you in any way, and what other types of content you'd like to see. And with that, thank you very much, and I'll see you later.